Today I would like to talk about breaking in your brushed motors and the wet break-in method in particular. Let's do it. No, actually, let's not. No, let's not. So back in the racing days, a wet break-in was a very popular way to break in your motor. Now that brushed motors are almost exclusively in crawlers, I'm just gonna start the video and say, don't do it. Don't break your motors in wet. It's not a good idea, and it's more likely you'll end up ruining your motor than helping it out. This does kind of change depending on the motor type. We have the rebuildable style with these brush hoods that you can see. Everything is external. There are channels that the brushes slide in, and it's pretty tight tolerances. These are high quality motors. Then we have the non-rebuildable style, the sealed can motor. And this is really where the wet break-in method came from, at least in my understanding. I wasn't back in the racing days myself, but this is when it would be at least more advantageous to do a wet break-in because you really can't get into the motor itself. And there's also no brush channels, so you can't get gunked up while you're doing a break-in. So let's just talk about why you would first use a wet break-in. In the racing days, with a sealed can motor, you want to make sure that your motor is top performance. And people would buy 10 motors just so they can find the one best one, and they would essentially throw the others away or give them to their competitors, so the competitors are guaranteed running slower motors. Part of getting maximum power out of a motor is making sure that the brush has complete contact with the commutator. And in these sealed can styles, they really don't have a lot of contact out of the box. The brushes are typically shaped more boxy, and then we've got a round commutator. Let's just, we'll make a visualization here. We've got a round commutator, and then the brushes are more boxy. So as you wear in, it will form the shape. Straight out of the box though, they've got these little like tabs on the side that you maybe will be getting 20% contact. So in the racing days, you really wanted to maximize your contact, and you didn't care if you basically ruined the motor. As long as you got like a good 1 or 3 or 10 runs out of it, you're totally fine. It wears out the motor very quickly. You're chewing through your brushes, and the brushes are what makes the motor work. So if you chew through half of those brushes trying to break it in, which is about what you would do on a sealed can, then you have effectively halved the service life of the motor. Now, that's why you would do it, is that you want maximum performance. In a crawler, though, the difference between maximum performance and a non-broken in sealed can is not that big. The currents that we use are very small, for one. So you can get a lot of current density through even those just little tabs on the side of the brush that are touching the commutator. For two, you will give up a lot of the service life when you break it in. So it's really not a good idea. On top of all of this, if you don't properly reservice your motor after break-in, then you will have a rusty motor. These have ball bearings on the front. If you don't get all the water out and then re-lube those bearings, you're just gonna have a motor that doesn't like to run anymore. It's gonna have lower efficiency. The bearing just might self-implode after a very short period of time because they don't like being rusty and working. So in my opinion, not worth it. Now, if you are in a hurry to break them in, that's the best method for a sealed can. The water pulls all of the extra brush compound away. It keeps you from getting a proper patina on the commutator, and the proper patina is what the commutator uses against that brush surface to have an effective but long-lasting surface. The water prevents you from doing that, so you're just accelerating the wear many-fold over. Still don't recommend it. If you're using this in a crawler, If you're doing it in a racer, then maybe you know what you're doing and you can not rust your motor out. Now, rebuildable style. In general, I'm not gonna say use this rebuildable style in water use, and I'm definitely gonna say don't break them in water. We do break these in-house, all of our rebuildables, and maybe you'll be able to see on the camera, we've got these little slices in the brush face. So they break in extremely fast, and they actually commutate a little better, a little bit more effectively when those slices are present. So you don't want to wear those completely in. And with a water break-in method, 5 minutes in, you could be way through those. And really, we only get about half of the brush length for life. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can actually almost completely consume the life of your motor doing a wet break-in with this style. The reason why I don't recommend rebuildables for water use, period, is because of these brush channels. They're pretty tight tolerance things, and we need this brush to go very smoothly. The non-rebuildable style, they don't have these brush channels. It's literally just a spring that the brush is attached to, and that moves free floating inside the can. So you can't gum them up. but these channels, you can definitely gum them up. And if you do a water break-in and you don't clean your channels out, you're gonna have leftover carbon dust that ends up hanging out in there. You're gonna have rust in your motor anyways if you don't completely dry it out and completely relube everything. And really, just in my opinion, it's not worth the squeeze. The juice is not worth the squeeze for water break-in these days. Again, if you're racing, it's different, but today's brush motors are almost all exclusively used in crawlers. And for a crawler, if you're trying to eke out that extra 3%, just run it on the rocks for a little bit. It's such a low load that it will break it in without damaging your commutator. In a race situation, it's the opposite. It's such a high load, really tall gearing, that if you don't break them in first, you could definitely arc your commutator. You end up burning the edges of your brushes. It's bad news. So they should be broken in for racing, but in crawling, it's just such a different use that it doesn't even matter. But again, we always break these in for you. So if it's a Holmes Hobbies motor, you don't even have to worry about it. But if it's a non-Holmes Hobbies motor, I wouldn't worry about it either. Your crawling motors just aren't fast enough to need the break-in. And if you do, especially a water break-in, you're really just kind of pissing away your money, in my opinion. Now, that could be one way that you break these in wet. You spin on it, you piss on it, you get them wet somehow. And yeah, you're just gonna be having a stinky motor at the end of the day. So don't recommend it, really. No way that we're slicing it, at least for crawler use, would I ever recommend water break-in. But maybe you've done it and you feel like you've had success. So let me know in the comments. Have you ever done a water break-in and it works well for you? Maybe it was back in the racing days and you tell me about that. Was it in the crawling days though? I wanna know. Did you have a rusty motor afterwards? In all likelihood, the answer was probably yes, because you have to take them completely apart to get that water out. You want to relube them, you want to flush all your water out. It's kind of a process, and at the end of the day, I don't feel that it's worth it for the crawlers. So there you go. If you do have any questions about the process or life in general, leave your comments down below and we'll do our best to get to them. As always, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.
Let me tell you about the wet water break-in method. For RC rock crawlers, it ain't no good. Treat your motors right. Don't torture in that wet mess. They ain't fragile, but built to last. I confess, just take them for a spin. Let them breathe and run wild. These motors can handle it. Built to last. Oh yeah, these motors are strong, no need for wet water break-in. That's been proved wrong, so treat them right, give them a good ride. Holmes Hobbies motors, they'll be there by your side.
You've made it to the end of the video. Hopefully that means you liked what you saw. If you want to help out the channel, you can like, subscribe, and definitely comment down below. We would like to hear new ideas from you, so be sure you let us know what you'd like to see. There are some other suggestions probably floating by my head right now that you can check out, and otherwise we appreciate your support and your help growing the channel.